Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Evelyn Harper. Today, we're diving into a chilling whodunit inspired by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let's unravel the fatal secret of the Manhattan Librarian, a Hercule Poirot death story. This is a long, immersive tale, designed for those cozy evenings when you want to lose yourself in a puzzle. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next mystery. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Chapter 1. Introduction and Setup. The year was 1925, and Manhattan thrummed with the reckless energy of the roaring 20s. Skyscrapers clawed at the sky, their steel and glass reflecting the ambitions of a city drunk on progress. Jazz spilled from hidden speakeasies, defying prohibition's iron grip, while flappers danced in defiance of convention. Amid this glittering chaos stood the Astoria Public Library, a Gothic Revival masterpiece on Fifth Avenue, its spires and gargoyles looming like sentinels over the urban sprawl. Its marble halls, polished to a mirror's sheen, echoed with the soft tread of scholars and the whispers of ancient tomes. This was no mere repository of books, it was a fortress of knowledge, a sanctuary where the city's elite entrusted their rarest treasures. But beneath its scholarly veneer, secrets festered, secrets that would soon erupt into murder most foul. At the heart of this literary kingdom was Mr. Elias Thorne, the head librarian, a man whose life was as meticulously ordered as the card catalog he oversaw. At 55, Thorne cut an imposing figure despite his slight frame. His neatly trimmed beard, silvered at the edges, framed a face etched with the lines of a scholar who had spent decades deciphering faded manuscripts under lamplight. His spectacles, perpetually perched on the bridge of his nose, glinted with the intensity of a man who saw knowledge as both sword and shield. Clad in impeccably pressed tweed suits, Thorne moved through the library with the quiet authority of a monarch, his soft-spoken commands carrying the weight of law. He had risen from treasures donated by New York's wealthiest families, a Gutenberg Bible fragment, a Shakespeare folio, and, most intriguingly, a collection of Egyptian artifacts donated by a certain industrialist. The room was a locked fortress within a fortress, its heavy oak door reinforced with iron, its windows sealed and set 20 feet above the street, offering no ledge for daring intruders. It was here, in this hallowed chamber, that the drama would unfold. Our cast of characters, each bound to Thorne by threads of motive and opportunity, moved through the library like pieces on a chessboard. First was Miss Lydia Hargrove, Thorne's assistant of 20 years. In her mid-40s, Lydia was a spinster, whose sharp features and tightly wound bun suggested a life of rigid discipline. Her gray eyes, cold as slate, missed nothing, yet her thin lips rarely curved into a smile. She managed the library's daily operations with precision, but resentment simmered beneath her efficiency. Thorne had repeatedly denied her promotions, citing her lack of vision. Though staff whispered she knew of his financial indiscretions, perhaps embezzlement, to fund a hidden vice. Lydia's loyalty was a mask, and behind it lay a motive as sharp as the letter opener on Thorne's desk. Next was Mr. Reginald Blackwood, a titan of industry and the library's primary benefactor. In his 60s, Blackwood was a bear of a man, his booming voice and curled mustache dominating any room. His millions had funded the Vanderbilt wing, but recent tensions had strained his bond with Thorne. The librarian had uncovered irregularities in Blackwood's donations, artifacts, including a supposed Egyptian relic, that were clever forgeries meant to inflate tax deductions. Exposure would ruin Blackwood's standing among Manhattan's elite. giving him a motive to silence Thorn before the truth surfaced. His genial facade hid a ruthless streak, and his frequent visits to the library raised questions about what else he sought in its shadowed corners. Dr. Amelia Voss, a renowned archaeologist, was a frequent visitor whose presence added an air of intrigue. In her mid-30s, with auburn hair limp from a shrapnel wound and a haunted look in his eyes, he moved silently through the library, polishing floors and emptying bins, his access to every nook making him privy to whispered secrets. Thorn had caught him pilfering small items, books, trinkets, and threatened to expose him, a move that could return Finch to the streets he'd clawed his way out of. His quiet grudge burned like a slow fuse, and his knowledge of the library's hidden corners made him a figure to watch. Lastly, Mrs. Victoria Thorn, Elias's estranged wife, brought a personal edge to the drama. In her early 50s, she retained an elegant beauty, though her eyes held the weariness of a faded photograph. Living apart in a modest uptown apartment, she had endured years of rumors about Thorn's infidelity. Their marriage, once a society darling, had crumbled under the weight of his secrets. Victoria stood to inherit his modest estate, but more pressing was her knowledge of his deepest secret, an affair that, if exposed, would shatter her fragile social standing. Her poised demeanor hid a heart bruised by betrayal, and her visits to the library were rare, but charged with unspoken tension. Into this tangled web stepped Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective whose reputation for unraveling the impossible preceded him. With his egg-shaped head, meticulously waxed mustache, and fastidious gray cells, Poirot was in New York on a lecture tour, sharing his insights on modern criminology. A mutual friend, a professor of literature, had invited him to tour the Astoria Library, unaware that fate would draw him into a case as perplexing as any he'd faced. Poirot's fastidious nature, his love of symmetry, his disdain for disorder, made him both an oddity and a genius in Manhattan's chaotic streets. "Mon ami," he would later remark to his friend Captain Hastings, who had accompanied him across the Atlantic, "the little gray cells, they do not rest, even in this city of noise and haste." The evening of the crime began with deceptive calm. The library closed at 8, its heavy doors bolted against the night. By 9, the building was silent, save for the tick of the grandfather clock in the foyer. Vanderbilt Wing. A different kind of drama was brewing, one that would demand Poirot's keenest insight to unravel. As the city lights twinkled beyond the library's sealed windows, the stage was set for an impossible crime. A man would be found dead, a room locked from within, and a secret so fatal it would claim more than one life before the night was through. What darkness lay hidden in the heart of the Astoria Library? Who among these souls harbored the will to kill? And how could murder strike in a room no one could enter or leave? The answers, dear listeners, lie ahead. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. The morning of October 12, 1925, dawned crisp and golden over Manhattan, the city stirring like a restless giant under a veil of autumn mist. The Astoria Public Library, normally a haven of quiet order, awoke to an undercurrent of unease. Miss Lydia Hargrove, Thorn's ever-dutiful assistant, arrived at precisely 7 o'clock, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous atrium as she adjusted her pince-nez and smoothed her severe gray skirt. Her routine was as unyielding as the library's marble columns: unlock the staff entrance, check the overnight logs, and ensure the reading rooms were pristine before the public arrived. But today, something was amiss. The brass lamps in the Vanderbilt wing, visible through the atrium's arched doorway, glowed faintly, unusual, as Elias Thorn was meticulous about conserving electricity after hours.
Lydia's brow furrowed, her thin lips pursing as she approached the heavy oak door of the Vanderbilt wing. The room, a private sanctum for the library's rarest treasures, was Thorne's domain, locked each night with his personal key. She knocked sharply, the sound swallowed by the vastness of the library. No answer. Her unease deepened. Thorne was an early riser, often found at his desk by dawn, poring over ledgers or cataloging new acquisitions. Another knock, louder this time, yielded only silence. A prickle of dread ran down her spine, though she would later insist to the police it was merely irritation at her superior's oversight. Summoning Mr. Harold Finch, the library's janitor,
Guarded secret. Won't budge, Finch growled, jiggling the key to no avail. He's got the only key, far as I know. Lydia's patience snapped. Then we must force it. Something's wrong. Finch hesitated, aware that damaging the door would incur Thorne's wrath, but Lydia's glare brooked no argument. At that moment, Dr. Amelia Voss arrived, her auburn hair catching the morning light filtering through the stained glass dome. The archaeologist, dressed in a tailored green coat that matched her sharp eyes, was early for a research session in the Vanderbilt wing. Sensing the tension, she approached. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice smooth but laced with curiosity. Lydia, tight-lipped, explained the situation. Voss's brow arched. "Locked in? That's unlike Elias. Let me help." Together, the trio pushed against the door, its iron reinforcements groaning, but holding fast. Finch fetched a crowbar from his toolkit, and with a splintering crack, the lock gave way, the door swinging inward to reveal a scene that would haunt them all. Elias Thorne lay slumped over his mahogany desk, his head resting on a blood-soaked blotter. A silver letter opener, its handle carved with Egyptian motifs, protruded from his chest, the blade buried deep. His spectacles hung askew, one lens cracked, and his lifeless eyes stared at the ceiling, frozen in a moment of shock. Blood had pooled on the desk, staining papers and dripping onto the polished floor. The air was thick with the coppery scent of death, mingled with the musty aroma of old books. The Vanderbilt wing, with its crimson walls and towering shelves, seemed to close in, as if guarding the secret of its master's demise. Lydia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Poor Mr. Thorne. Who could have done this?" Her voice trembled, though her eyes darted to the desk, as if searching for something specific. Dr. Voss, ever composed, knelt beside the body, her gloved fingers checking for a pulse. "He's dead," she confirmed, her tone clinical, stabbed through the heart. "But look, no signs of a struggle. And the door undisturbed." The only door, now splintered, had been locked when they arrived, its mechanism intact, until Finch's crowbar intervened. Word of the tragedy spread like wildfire. Reginald Blackwood, the library's benefactor, arrived within the hour, his imposing frame filling the atrium. "This is outrageous," he boomed, his moustache quivering with feigned shock. "Thorne was like a brother to me." Yet his eyes flicked nervously to the shelves, as if fearing what secrets they held. His tailored suit and gold watch spoke of wealth, but his unease hinted at guilt or fear of exposure. Mrs. Victoria Thorne was summoned by telegram, arriving pale and elegant, her black silk dress a stark contrast to her ashen face. "We were estranged," she whispered, clutching her pearl necklace, "but he didn't deserve this." Her voice cracked, but her gaze lingered on the Vanderbilt wing, as if drawn to the scene of her husband's end. Was it grief, or something more calculated? The police arrived, led by Inspector Harlan Graves, a grizzled New Yorker with a cigar clamped between his teeth. His rumpled suit and skeptical squint marked him as a man unimpressed by Manhattan's glitter. "Locked room, huh?" he grunted, surveying the scene. "Looks like suicide to me." But a closer look at the letter opener's angle, straight into the heart, with no hesitation marks, ruled out self-infliction. No note, no overturned furniture, just the stark reality of murder in an impossible setting. By chance, or, as he would later claim, the hand of destiny, Hercule Poirot arrived at the library for a scheduled tour. The Belgian detective, his egg-shaped head tilted and moustache gleaming, stepped into the chaos with an air of calm curiosity. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, his green eyes scanning the room. "A locked room, a dead man, and a puzzle that begs the little grey cells to awaken. This is no suicide, Inspector. This is murder. Most ingenious." Poirot's examination was meticulous. On Thorne's desk lay scattered clues, a ledger with entries circled in red, hinting at discrepancies in donations. A cryptic note in Thorne's "Cleaned the foyer and went home," his tenement neighbors nodding agreement. Mrs. Thorne claimed a bridge game uptown, though her partner noted she left early. Poirot's mustache twitched. Alibis, they are like books on a shelf, neatly arranged, but some hide torn pages. He noted inconsistencies. Hargrove's knowledge of Thorne's secret dealings, Blackwood's forged artifacts, Voss's disputed papyrus, Finch's pilfering, Mrs. Thorne's rumoured betrayal. Each suspect had a motive, each a shadow over their story. As the morning wore on, the library buzzed with police and whispers. The Vanderbilt wing remained sealed, its secrets locked within its crimson walls. How had the killer entered and escaped? What was the fatal secret tied to the Pharaoh's curse? And why did the air feel heavy with unspoken truths? Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The morning sun climbed higher over Manhattan, its golden rays filtering through the Astoria Public Library's stained glass dome, casting fractured light across the marble atrium. The air buzzed with a low hum of police activity, officers cordoning off the Vanderbilt wing as curious staff whispered behind their hands. The discovery of Elias Thorne's body, stabbed in a locked room, the key in his pocket, no trace of entry or exit, had shaken the library's orderly world. Inspector Harlan Graves, his cigar smouldering like a fuse, barked orders to his men, but his gruff exterior belied a growing unease. "This ain't no ordinary murder," he muttered, kicking at a stray paper. "Locked room, no footprints, makes no damn sense." Into this chaos stepped Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes clicking with purpose on the polished floor. His egg-shaped head tilted slightly, and his mustache, waxed to perfection, quivered as he surveyed the scene. "No, Inspector," he said, his voice a soft contrast to Graves' growl. "It is precisely because it makes no sense that it fascinates. The impossible demands the attention of the little grey cells." Graves snorted, unimpressed by the Belgian's flair, but Poirot's reputation as a solver of the unsolvable stayed his tongue. "You think you're smarter than New York's finest, eh? Go ahead, play." Deliberate and precise. "We face a puzzle most extraordinary. Monsieur Thorne was murdered in a room locked from within. No secret passages. I have examined the walls. No poison. The wound is clear. A single stab to the heart. The windows, sealed and high. The key in his pocket. Yet murder has occurred. How? Why? And by whom? These are the questions we shall answer." He paced slowly, his cane tapping rhythmically. "First, we must understand the man. Monsieur Thorne was not merely a librarian, but a guardian of secrets, secrets that, perhaps, cost him his life. Let us begin with your stories." The interviews commenced, each suspect ushered into a private alcove off the main hall, where Poirot's piercing gaze and gentle probing unravelled their facades. Miss Lydia Hargrove went first, her grey eyes darting like trapped birds. She sat ramrod straight, her hands twisting a handkerchief. "I left at 8, as always," she said, her voice clipped. "The doorman, Mr. Jenkins, saw me go. I went home to my apartment on 23rd Street, alone." Poirot tilted his head. "And Monsieur Thorne? He was preoccupied of late, no?" Lydia hesitated, then nodded. "He was secretive, always in the Vanderbilt wing, studying that book, The Pharaoh's Curse. He said it held a fatal secret, something about a cursed artifact. I thought he was being dramatic." Her lips thinned. "He often was." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "This book, it was donated by Monsieur Blackwood, yes? And what did Thorne suspect?" Lydia's fingers tightened on her handkerchief. "He thought it hid something, a map, perhaps, or documents. He wouldn't tell me more, but he was obsessed." Poirot noted her evasiveness, the way her gaze flicked to the floor when she mentioned the book. Was it fear, or something deeper? Reginald Blackwood strode in next, his booming voice filling the alcove. "This is preposterous. Thorne was my friend." His gold watch glinted as he gestured, but sweat beaded on his brow despite the cool air. Poirot leaned forward. "And yet, monsieur, there would—" He thought it contained a hidden compartment, perhaps for blackmail material. He wasn't the saint he appeared. Her eyes met Poirot's, unflinching. "But I left at 8:30, alone. My hotel porter can confirm." The porter, however, was vague, recalling only a woman in green leaving sometime that evening. Harold Finch shuffled in, his limp pronounced, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. "I cleaned the foyer, locked up, went home," he muttered. "Tenement on the Lower East Side. Neighbours saw me." Poirot leaned closer, noting the faint smell of pipe smoke. "And the cigar on Thorne's desk? Not yours?" Finch shook his head. "I smoke a pipe. Thorne caught me taking a book once, threatened to fire me, but I ain't no killer." His hands trembled slightly, betraying more than his words. Mrs. Victoria Thorne was last, her black silk dress whispering as she sat. Her fingers clutched her pearl necklace, and her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. "Elias and I were estranged," she said softly. "He had affairs. A secret that could ruin me socially if it came out, but I was at a bridge game uptown until 10. Her partner, however, noted she left early, claiming a headache. Poirot's gaze lingered on her necklace. "And this secret, madame, it was personal?" She nodded, lips trembling. "A mistress, years ago. I forgave him, or tried." Poirot returned to the Vanderbilt wing, where Inspector Graves was cataloguing evidence. The ledger revealed thousands in forged donations, linked to Blackwood's artifacts. The note, "The secret buried in the Pharaoh's curse, reveal it and die," was in Thorne's hand, but the ink was fresh, suggesting urgency. The cigar, a rare Cuban brand, was not Thorne's. He preferred pipes. The pearl earring, delicate and costly, matched a pair owned by Dr. Voss, though she claimed it lost weeks ago. A smudged footprint near the window, too small for a man, caught Poirot's eye, though the sealed windows ruled out entry. A faint scratch on the lock suggested tampering, but the key in Thorne's pocket was intact. Graves scratched his head. "So, what's your angle, Poirot? Secret trapdoor? Hidden assassin?" Poirot shook his head. Felt rehearsed. As the day waned, Poirot stood beneath the stained glass dome, its colours fading into dusk. "The web is woven," he murmured to Captain Hastings, who had joined him from the hotel. "Each suspect has a motive, greed, revenge, shame. But the method, Hastings, the method, that is the key to this locked room." Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The investigation into Elias Thorne's murder had transformed the Astoria Public Library into a labyrinth of suspicion. By late afternoon, the grand atrium, usually alive with the rustle of pages, buzzed with the murmurs of police and the weight of unspoken secrets. Hercule Poirot, his green eyes sharp beneath his polished fedora, moved through the library like a chess master studying a board. The locked Vanderbilt wing, where Thorne had met his end, remained sealed, its crimson walls guarding the truth of an impossible crime. "The clues, they are like stars in the day," Poirot mused to Captain Hastings, who trailed him with a notebook. "Invisible until one adjusts the light of reason." Poirot's first task was to revisit the crime scene, now under the watchful eye of Inspector Harlan Graves's officers. The Vanderbilt wing, with its towering shelves and sealed windows, offered no obvious answers. Poirot knelt by the desk, examining the blood-stained letter opener with its Egyptian motifs. "This weapon," he said, "it is not merely a tool, but a message. Why choose this, when a knife would suffice?" He turned to the scattered clues, the ledger with its circled entries, the cryptic note about the Pharaoh's curse, the half-smoked Cuban cigar, and the pearl earring glinting on the floor. Each was a thread, but which led to the killer? A closer inspection revealed a new clue, a faint scratch on the oak bookshelf behind Thorne's desk, barely visible in the dim light. Poirot ran his gloved fingers along it, discovering a hidden panel that clicked open to reveal a narrow dumbwaiter shaft. His heart quickened, but the shaft was too small for a person, barely wide enough for a tray of books. A rare evidence.
"Those entries prove nothing," he boomed, his mustache quivering. Thorne was mistaken, but a search of Thorne's safe, unlocked by Inspector Graves, revealed receipts for Blackwood's donations, several marked as forgeries, totaling tens of thousands. "You stood to lose your reputation, monsieur," Poirot said. Blackwood's alibi weakened further when a cabbie reported driving him near the library at 8:30 p.m., not the club. "A brief errand," Blackwood stammered, but his sweat betrayed him. Dr. Amelia Voss remained poised, her auburn hair gleaming as she faced Poirot. "The pearl earring," she insisted, "was lost weeks ago during a research visit." "I'm not careless enough to leave evidence," she said, her smile tight. But a maid, questioned separately, found the earring's mate in Voss's purse at her hotel. Planted, or a damning oversight? Poirot pressed. "And the Pharaoh's curse?" Thorne believed it held a secret. Voss nodded. "He was obsessed with a hidden compartment. I examined it myself, nothing but paper and ink." Yet her knowledge of the book's bindings suggested more familiarity than she admitted. Harold Finch, limping into the alcove, clutched a tool kit that held a surprise, a duplicate key, roughly forged, that didn't fit the Vanderbilt wing's lock. "Made it for emergencies," Finch muttered, his eyes shadowed. "Thorne kept secrets, locked rooms. I thought maybe I'd need it." Poirot's gaze lingered on Finch's trembling hands. "And the cigar, monsieur? Not yours?" Finch shook his head. "Pipe smoker. Someone's setting me up." The cigar ash, tested by a police chemist, matched Blackwood's preferred brand, a detail Poirot noted with a raised brow. Mrs. Victoria Thorne's composure cracked slightly as Poirot questioned her. Her bridge game alibi faltered. A fellow player confirmed she left by 8 p.m., claiming a headache. "I walked in Central Park," she said, her fingers twisting her pearl necklace, "to clear my mind." But a library doorman recalled seeing a woman in black silk near the service entrance at 9 p.m. "Not me," she insisted, but her voice wavered. False lead. Yet a fiber on the letter opener, caught in its ornate handle, matched the green wool of Voss's coat, though she swore she hadn't touched it. The footprint near the window, smudged but small,
suggested a woman's shoe, but the sealed windows mocked its relevance. And the note about the Pharaoh's curse. Poirot examined it under a magnifying glass, noting the ink matched Hargrove's desk set, though she claimed it was standard library issue. Poirot's investigation took him to the library's card catalogue, where he found an oddity. A card for the Pharaoh's curse listed it as restricted, with a handwritten note in Thorne's scrawl. Do not circulate. Danger. The book itself, retrieved from the Vanderbilt wing, was unremarkable, a 19th-century tome on Egyptian myths, but its binding was slightly loose, hinting at tampering. A compartment, as Mademoiselle Voss suggested. Poirot wondered aloud to Hastings. Or another trick. The suspect's interactions grew tense. Hargrove snapped at a junior librarian, who mentioned her late-night arguments with Thorne. Blackwood accused Voss of planting the cigar to frame him, while Voss hinted Finch's access to the building made him the likely culprit. Finch, overhearing, muttered darkly about rich folks hiding their sins. Mrs. Thorne avoided the others, her gaze fixed on the Vanderbilt wing as if it held answers, or threats. Poirot faced a maze of deception. The dumbwaiter was a dead end, too small for entry. The glove, the ghost stories, the poisoned pen, all distractions, yet each nibbled at the edges of truth. The real clues, cigar ash, the fiber, the footprint, the note's ink, pointed in circles. The killer is clever, Poirot told Hastings, weaving a tapestry of lies. But the truth, it is like a book misplaced. One must know where to look. As dusk settled over Manhattan, the library's stained glass dome glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows. Poirot stood alone in the Vanderbilt wing, the crime scene silent but for the tick of a distant clock. The web tightens, he said softly, his cane tapping the floor. But the spider, it hides in plain sight. The clues pile up, dear listeners, but so do the shadows of
his efforts. The truth. It is like a rare manuscript, he told Captain Hastings, who hovered nearby with a furrowed brow. One must handle it with care, lest it crumbles under haste. New revelations had surfaced, each a twist in the labyrinthine case. Poirot had uncovered Thorne's deepest secret, not merely an affair, as Mrs. Victoria Thorne had hinted, but embezzlement, to fund a hidden child from that liaison, now a young woman living in obscurity upstate. The discovery came from a coded letter in Thorne's safe, deciphered by Poirot's meticulous eye. To my daughter E.M., my shame is my gift. The initials matched no known suspect, but Mrs. Thorne's reaction when confronted was telling. I knew of the affair, she admitted, her voice brittle as she clutched her pearl necklace. But a child? That explains his desperation. Her motive deepened. Divorce was one thing, but public humiliation and loss of inheritance stung sharper. Yet her alibi, weakened by her early departure from the bridge game, held a new wrinkle. A groundskeeper saw a woman in black silk near the library's service entrance at 9 p.m., lingering in the shadows. Reginald Blackwood, the blustering industrialist, added another twist. Cornered by Poirot's evidence of forged donations, he confessed to falsifying artifacts to inflate tax deductions. It was business, not murder, he roared, his gold watch glinting as he gestured. He claimed a secret tunnel, used during Prohibition to smuggle rare books, allowed him to visit the library unseen. Poirot's investigation, however, dashed this hope. The tunnel, hidden behind a basement wall, had been bricked up years ago, a relic of the library's early days. Blackwood's face fell, his alibi crumbling further when a library guard recalled seeing his Rolls-Royce parked nearby at 8:45 p.m. A red herring of his own making, Poirot noted, but the confession muddied the waters, shifting suspicion. Dr. Amelia Voss, the poised archaeologist, brought her own complication.
Under pressure, she admitted to smuggling small artifacts for private collection.
Small chisel. Confronted, Finch's composure cracked, and in a sudden outburst, he lunged at Poirot with a wrench, shouting, "You don't know what he did!" A quick intervention by Graves subdued him, but Finch's ramblings revealed a war trauma tied to Thorne's family. His brother, killed in the Great War, had served under an officer Thorne allegedly betrayed for profit. "He ruined us," Finch spat, his eyes wild. The chisel, later found in a furnace, bore traces of wood matching the Vanderbilt wing's door, suggesting tampering. Yet Finch's attack felt like a diversion, his motive too personal for the calculated murder. Miss Lydia Hargrove's absence raised alarms. She vanished briefly during the afternoon, returning flushed and clutching a singed envelope. "Personal correspondence," she claimed, but a junior librarian reported seeing her near the incinerator, burning papers. Poirot's search of the ashes uncovered fragments of a letter in Hargrove's hand. Must end his lies. Was it evidence destroyed, or another misdirection? Her obsession with the Pharaoh's curse deepened suspicion. She admitted to cataloging it, noting its loose binding. "Thorne thought it hid a secret," she said, "but I found nothing." Poirot's examination of the book revealed a faint seam, suggesting a hidden pocket, but it was empty. Hargrove's nervous glance at Voss hinted at deeper knowledge or accusation. A major twist shook the case. The locked room wasn't truly locked. Poirot, re-examining the Vanderbilt wing's door, discovered the key in Thorne's pocket was a duplicate, its edges slightly worn. The original, found hidden in a hollowed-out book on Thorne's desk, bore fresh scratches, suggesting it had been used and concealed. "The killer locked the room after the deed," Poirot declared, slipping the duplicate into his pocket to create the illusion. This revelation opened new possibilities. Access wasn't impossible, but cunningly staged. Danger struck Poirot directly, adding a chilling complication. While sipping tea in the library's staff room, he detected a bitter undertone. Cyanide.
Stained glass dome, as if seeking divine clarity. In a climactic gathering in the atrium, Poirot faced the suspects, his voice steady. "One of you is guilty, but the method, that is the genius. The duplicate key, the hidden book, the poisoned tea, all point to a mind both cunning and desperate. But the secret of the Pharaoh's curse holds the answer." He held up the book, its leather cover gleaming. A librarian's note, slipped to Poirot, revealed Thorne had consulted a rare books expert days before, suspecting the book hid microfilm of forged donation records, Blackwood's perhaps, or another's. The investigation teetered on a knife's edge. The footprint near the window, the cigar ash, the fibre, all circled back to multiple suspects. Poirot's grey cells churned, sifting truth from deception. "The killer is among us," he said, his eyes scanning the group. "But the web is tangled. We must cut through to the heart." The plot thickens, dear listeners, with twists and dangers closing in. Who tampered with the lock? What does the Pharaoh's curse truly hide? Join us next time as Poirot edges closer to the truth. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The Astoria Public Library stood silent as dusk settled over Manhattan, its stained glass dome casting fractured shadows across the marble atrium. The air was thick with anticipation, the weight of secrets pressing down like the heavy tomes lining the shelves. Hercule Poirot had summoned the suspects: Miss Lydia Hargrove, Reginald Blackwood, Dr. Amelia Voss, Harold Finch, and Mrs. Victoria Thorne, to the grand hall, where chandeliers flickered like stars in a troubled sky. Inspector Harlan Graves stood by, his cigar extinguished, his skepticism tempered by Poirot's relentless logic. Captain Hastings, notebook in hand, watched as the Belgian detective prepared to unravel the impossible murder of Elias Thorne. Poirot stood at the center of the hall, his small frame commanding attention, his mustache a perfect arc of certainty. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began.
Hargrove's gray eyes widened, her hands clutching her shawl. Blackwood blustered. "Preposterous!" Voss's lips tightened. Finch shifted uneasily, and Mrs. Thorne's fingers froze on her pearls. Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Let us reconstruct the crime. The Vanderbilt wing was locked, the key in Thorne's pocket a duplicate. The real key, hidden in a hollowed book, tells us the killer entered, killed, and locked the door after. But how was the stab delivered in a room so secure?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The method is ingenious. A mechanism, simple, yet diabolical. A string, threaded through a tiny hole in the doorframe, was tied to the letter opener. The killer, outside, pulled the string, driving the blade into Thorne's chest as he sat at his desk. The string was then withdrawn, the hole so small it escaped notice. The door was locked with the real key, which was hidden, and the duplicate placed in Thorne's pocket to create the illusion of an impossible crime." Graves's jaw dropped. "A string? That's absurd." Poirot smiled. "No, Inspector, it is precise. The hole was found this morning, concealed by a carved rosette. Residue on the letter opener, wax from the string, confirms it." He turned to the suspects. "But who had the knowledge, the access, the motive?" He faced Hargrove. "Mademoiselle, you were Thorne's confidant for 20 years. You knew his secrets, his embezzlement, his child. But there is more. The child, E.M., was yours, born from a secret affair with Thorne, who promised marriage but abandoned you for his career and reputation." Hargrove's face drained of color. "No, that's not," she stammered. Poirot pressed on. "The note, the secret buried in the Pharaoh's curse, was in your ink, from your desk. You catalogued the book, knew its hidden microfilm exposed Blackwood's forgeries, which Thorne used to extort money for your child. But when he threatened to reveal your past, your shame became rage. You devised the mechanism, using your access to Overshadowed. Graves stepped forward, handcuffs ready. "That's enough, Poirot. You've got her." Hargrove rose, her face a mask of defeat, as officers led her away. Poirot watched, his expression somber. "The heart, it is a fragile thing," he said to Hastings. "Love twisted into hate, and the mind, so clever, becomes a trap." The hall fell silent, the chandelier's light dimming as night cloaked Manhattan. The puzzle was solved, the impossible explained, but the weight of human frailty lingered. Justice served. The Astoria Public Library stood hushed under the weight of dawn's pale light, its stained glass dome casting muted colors across the marble atrium. The frenetic energy of the past days, police officers bustling, suspects trembling under Poirot's scrutiny, had faded, leaving a somber stillness. The revelation of Miss Lydia Hargrove as Elias Thorne's killer had shocked the library staff and Manhattan's elite alike. Her confession, raw with the pain of betrayal and a mother's desperation, lingered like a ghost in the halls. Hercule Poirot, his egg-shaped head tilted and mustache immaculate, stood in the atrium, his green eyes reflecting the weight of human frailty. "The case, it is closed, mon ami," he said to Captain Hastings, who stood beside him, notebook now tucked away. "But the heart, it does not close so easily." Inspector Harlan Graves, his cigar replaced by a rare look of respect, oversaw the final proceedings. Hargrove, her severe bun loosened and gray eyes dull, had been taken into custody the previous evening. Her arrest was swift but not without drama. She had tried to flee through the library service entrance, only to be apprehended by Graves's men in the shadow of the building's gargoyles. "She's no master criminal," Graves grunted to Poirot, adjusting his rumpled fedora. "Just a woman scorned, pushed too far." Poirot nodded, his expression pensive. "No, Inspector. She was a mind brilliant in its precision, undone by a heart too heavy with grief." The aftermath of the case rippled through the suspects, each grappling with their own reckoning.
Her hotel led to charges of trafficking stolen antiquities. As she prepared to leave the library, her green coat draped over her arm, she met Poirot's eyes. "I thought you'd pin it on me," she said, her voice tinged with bitter amusement. "That earring was a clever plant." Poirot inclined his head. "Mademoiselle, your crimes are real, but murder was not among them. The gray cells, they do not err." Voss's smile was faint as she departed, her future uncertain, but her role in Thorne's death absolved. Harold Finch, the limping janitor, found a measure of peace. His outburst against Poirot, driven by war trauma and a grudge against Thorne's family, had been a moment of madness, not guilt. The chisel in his toolkit, though suspicious, was proven unrelated to the murder, its wood traces linked to a repair job, not the Vanderbilt wing's door. Finch, reinstated by the library's board, returned to his duties, his haunted eyes softened by Poirot's quiet reassurance. "Monsieur Finch," Poirot said, clasping his shoulder, "the war took much, but you are not its prisoner." Finch nodded, his pipe smoke curling as he resumed polishing the floors, a ghost no longer. Mrs. Victoria Thorne, elegant even in grief, faced her own resolution. The revelation of Thorne's hidden child, E.M., struck her deeply, but she chose dignity over scandal. "I'll not speak ill of the dead," she told Poirot, her black silk dress whispering as she stood in the atrium. "Elias's sins are buried with him." She declined to pursue the inheritance, instead donating her share to the library's restoration fund. Her bridge partners, gossiping uptown, noted her absence from society events, but her poise remained unbroken. Poirot, observing her departure, murmured to Hastings, "A woman of strength, who carries her wounds in silence." The library itself began to heal. The Vanderbilt wing, once a crime scene, was cleaned and resealed, its treasures under new stewardship. A young librarian, Miss Clara Evans, was appointed interim head, her quiet competence a stark contrast to Thorne's imperious reign. The staff, shaken by Hargrove's betrayal, rallied to restore the library's reputation. Ami, I merely shine a light on what is already there. Inspector Graves, in a rare gesture, tipped his hat as Poirot boarded a cab to the docks. "Not bad, Belgian," he called. "You've got a knack for this." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The grey cells, Inspector. They never fail." As the cab pulled away, Manhattan's bustle swallowed him. The library receding into memory. The case left its mark. Newspapers splashed the story across front pages. Librarian's fatal secret unraveled by Belgian sleuth. Society matrons gossiped over tea, while speakeasies hummed with tales of the locked-room murder. Hargrove's trial loomed, her confession ensuring conviction, though her daughter, E.M., remained a shadow, untouched by public scrutiny. The library's board issued a statement vowing transparency, while Blackwood's fall and Voss's arrest fueled Manhattan's scandal mill. As days turned to weeks, the Astoria Public Library reclaimed its role as a beacon of knowledge.
The chandeliers glowed once more, the marble floors gleamed, and the books whispered their stories to new readers. Yet, in quiet moments, staff claimed to hear faint echoes, perhaps the ghost of Thorn, or merely the creak of old wood. The fatal secret was buried, but its echoes lingered, a reminder of the fragility of trust. And so ends our tale, dear listeners. Justice has been served, but the heart of the mystery beats on. Thank you for joining me on Mystery Manor Tales. If you've enjoyed this journey, like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, who did you suspect until the end? Until next time, keep your eyes sharp and your heart open. Echoes of the Secret Weeks had passed since the arrest of Miss Lydia Hargrove, and the Astoria Public Library stood as a beacon of resilience against the backdrop of Manhattan's restless skyline. The crisp October air of 1925 had given way to November's chill, and the city pulsed with the frenetic energy of the roaring 20s, jazz spilling from speakeasies, flappers defying prohibition's shadow, and skyscrapers climbing ever higher. Yet within the library's Gothic scholar's mind had stepped into the role with a determination to heal the institution's wounds. "The library is more than its past," she told the staff at her first meeting, her voice firm yet warm. "We honor Mr. Thorn by preserving knowledge, not his secrets." The ripples of the case, however, extended beyond the library's walls. Lydia Hargrove's trial had gripped Manhattan, dominating headlines in the New York Herald and the Times. "Librarian's betrayal, a locked-room tragedy," screamed one front page, detailing her confession, a tale of love twisted into vengeance, driven by Thorn's abandonment of her and their secret daughter. E.M. Hargrove, convicted of murder, faced a life sentence. Her severe bun and sharp features, now a faded memory in the library's halls. Yet in a poignant twist, Clara discovered a letter Hargrove had left behind, tucked into a forgotten drawer, a plea for E.M. to be cared for, addressed to no one but sealed with a mother's hope. Clara, moved by compassion, quietly arranged for the letter to reach a distant relative, ensuring E.M.'s anonymity and safety. Reginald Blackwood's fall was the talk of Manhattan's elite. The industrialist, once a towering figure in society, was indicted for tax fraud based on the ledger and microfilm from the Pharaoh's curse. His forged donations, artifacts meant to inflate his wealth, cost him his standing, and his Fifth Avenue mansion was seized to cover fines. In a rare moment of candor, Blackwood wrote to the library's board expressing regret. "I sought to build a legacy," he penned, "but built a house of lies instead." His trial loomed, but whispers in speakeasies suggested he'd flee to Europe, a broken man chasing redemption. Clara, reviewing his letter, shook her head. "He gave us treasures, but at what cost?" she murmured, locking the forged artifacts in a secure vault. Dr. Amelia Voss, the archaeologist whose auburn hair and sharp intellect had marked her as a suspect, faced her own reckoning. Charged with trafficking stolen antiquities, she lost her academic post and her reputation in scholarly circles. Yet, in a surprising turn, Voss chose not to fight the charges. From her cell, "No ghosts here," he told Clara one evening, his pipe smoke curling in the basement. "Just books and memories." His presence grounded the staff, a reminder that resilience could emerge from pain. Mrs. Victoria Thorn, the librarian's estranged widow, chose a path of quiet dignity. The revelation of Thorn's secret child, E.M., had wounded her, but she refused to let scandal define her. She donated her inheritance to the library, funding a new reading room for children, a gesture that surprised even Clara. "Elias's mistakes are not mine," she told a reporter, her black silk dress as elegant as ever. "Let the library be a place of hope." She withdrew from Manhattan's social scene, moving to a modest estate in Connecticut, where she tended a garden and wrote poetry, her grief a private companion. Clara, visiting her to express gratitude, found her serene. "You've given us a future," Clara said. Victoria's smile was faint but genuine. "It's what I have left to give." The library itself became a symbol of renewal. The Vanderbilt wing, once sealed by tragedy, reopened to scholars, its treasures, minus the tainted the Pharaoh's curse, drawing researchers from across the globe. Clara implemented new protocols, ensuring transparency in donations and cataloging. The staff, once fractured by suspicion, united under her leadership, their whispers of the murder replaced by discussions of literature and learning. Patrons filled the reading rooms, and the atrium's chandeliers glowed brighter, as if the library had exhaled its burdens. Yet echoes of the fatal secret persisted. Late at night, when the library was empty, junior librarians swore they heard faint footsteps in the Vanderbilt wing, though Clara dismissed them as old pipes settling. A curious patron found an unmarked book on a shelf, a worn copy of The Pharaoh's Curse, its pages blank except for a single handwritten note. "Forgive me." Clara, examining it, wondered if Hargrove had left one final message, but she shelved it in the vault, unwilling to stir old ghosts. Across the Atlantic, Hercule Poirot, now back in his London flat, reflected on,
Dear listeners, with justice served and echoes fading, thank you for joining me on Mystery Manor Tales. If this story stirred your soul, like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what lingered with you most? Until next time, keep seeking truth in the shadows. Chapter 9. Legacy of the Locked Room. As winter tightened its grip on Manhattan in late November 1925, the Astoria Public Library stood as a quiet sentinel amidst the city's ceaseless rhythm. The Roaring Twenties roared on, speakeasies pulsed with jazz, flappers twirled in defiance of prohibition, and skyscrapers stretched toward the stars. Yet within the library's Gothic embrace, a serene transformation continued. The marble atrium, once a stage for betrayal and bloodshed, now hummed with a gentle cadence of scholarship. Patrons moved through its halls, their footsteps softened by the weight of new beginnings, while the stained glass dome cast Athena's watchful glow, its colors muted by the gray November sky. The shadow of Elias Thorne's murder, solved by Hercule Poirot's brilliant deduction, lingered like a faint ink stain on an ancient page. Miss Clara Evans, the young head librarian, had become the library's guiding light, her steady hand steering it toward renewal. Her office, once Thorne's domain, was now a space of openness, books neatly arranged, windows flung wide to let in the crisp air. "We are not defined by one man's secrets," Clara told a gathering of staff, her voice carrying a quiet resolve. "We are a sanctuary for truth." Her reforms, transparent cataloging, open access to the Vanderbilt wing, and a community reading program had restored the library's reputation, drawing scholars and curious readers alike. The legacy of Lydia Hargrove's crime, however, cast a long shadow. Her trial, a spectacle that had gripped Manhattan's imagination, concluded with a life sentence. The New York Tribune ran a final headline: "Librarian's Vengeance, a Mother's Fatal Secret." Hargrove's confession, her love for Thorne twisted into rage over their secret daughter, E.M., had moved even the sternest jurors to pity. Clara, sifting through old empty, its windows dark. Yet, in a twist that surprised even Clara, Blackwood sent a donation to the library before his sentencing, a modest sum, legally acquired, to fund a scholarship for aspiring librarians. "I built lies," his accompanying note read.
But perhaps this can build truth. Clara, moved by the gesture, established the fund in his name, a nod to his complex legacy. Whispers in speakeasies claimed Blackwood had sailed for Paris, seeking a new start, but his shadow no longer haunted the library's halls. Dr. Amelia Voss, the archaeologist whose sharp mind had nearly been ensnared by suspicion, emerged as a figure of quiet redemption. Her conviction for trafficking antiquities cost her academic career, but from her modest cell, she continued to correspond with Clara. A second package arrived, a collection of annotated sketches of Egyptian artifacts, legally sourced, with a note, "For the Vanderbilt wing, to inspire future scholars." Clara, displaying the sketches in a new exhibit, saw them draw crowds, their intricate details a testament to Voss's expertise. She was flawed but brilliant, Clara told a visiting professor. Voss's sentence was light, and rumors swirled of her planning a memoir, a tale of ambition and atonement that would surely captivate readers. Harold Finch, the war-scarred janitor, became an unsung hero of the library's revival. His steady presence, polishing floors, repairing shelves, his pipe smoke curling in the basement, grounded the staff. The chisel, once a false clue, was forgotten, and Finch's limp seemed lighter, as if Poirot's words had eased an old wound. One evening, he showed Clara a small carving he'd made, a miniature book etched with his brother's initials. "For the library," he said gruffly. Clara placed it on a shelf in the staff room, a quiet tribute to resilience. Finch's loyalty, unspoken but steadfast, became a cornerstone of the library's new era. Mrs. Victoria Thorne, the widow who had faced her husband's betrayal with grace, found solace in her Connecticut retreat. Her donation of a children's reading room named the Athena Nook opened to fanfare, with young readers flocking.
Inscription on its flyleaf, overlooked in the chaos. To knowledge, the only true treasure, E.T. She smiled, wondering if Thorne had left a final plea for redemption. The Wing's treasures, a Gutenberg fragment, a Shakespeare folio, drew researchers from Oxford and Paris, restoring the library's global renown. Manhattan itself seemed to exhale, its gossip mills turning to fresher scandals. The library's story faded from headlines, replaced by tales of jazz stars and bootleggers. Yet, in quiet moments, patrons reported strange occurrences, a book falling from a shelf, a whisper in the Vanderbilt wing. Clara dismissed them as fancy, but one night, alone in the atrium, she found a single page on the floor, torn from an unknown book. The truth endures. She tucked it away, unwilling to stir old mysteries, but her heart quickened at the thought of unseen watchers. Across the ocean, Hercule Poirot sat in his London flat, a fire crackling as he sipped tisane. A letter from Clara arrived, thanking him for his role in saving the library. "Your logic was our salvation," she wrote. Poirot, reading it to Hastings, smiled faintly. "The grey cells, they uncover truth, but it is the heart that heals." Hastings nodded, raising a toast. "To Manhattan's mysteries and your brilliance." Poirot's mustache twitched. "To order, mon ami, in a world of chaos." The Astoria Public Library stood as a testament to endurance, its marble gleaming, its books whispering stories to new generations. Athena's gaze, eternal in stained glass, watched over a place where secrets had been laid bare, and knowledge reclaimed its throne. Our tale concludes, dear listeners, with a legacy forged from truth. Thank you for joining me on Mystery Manor Tales. Like, share, and subscribe if this journey moved you. Tell me in the comments, what will you carry from this story? Until next time, seek the light in every shadow. Chapter 10. The Final Page. December 1925 cloaked Manhattan in a mantle of frost, the city's pulse quickening with holiday fervor. Speakeasies glowed with illicit warmth.
Programs and a children's storytelling hour had transformed the library into a beacon of knowledge and trust. "We are more than our secrets," she told a reporter from the New York Post, her hazel eyes bright with purpose. "We are a home for stories, for truth." Patrons, from school children to professors, filled the reading rooms, their presence a testament to the library's resilience. The shadow of Lydia Hargrove's crime lingered, but softly, like a faded footnote. Her life sentence, handed down in a packed courtroom, had closed a chapter, though her story stirred empathy in those who knew it. A small memorial, a discreet plaque in the staff room, honored her years of service before her fall. To Lydia Hargrove, whose love taught us the cost of secrets. Clara, who had found the photograph of a young Hargrove with Thorne, kept it in a locked archive, a private reminder of human frailty. E.M., Hargrove's secret daughter, thrived in Albany under her cousin's care, unaware of her mother's fate. Clara received a second letter from the cousin, enclosing a drawing by E.M., a simple sketch of a book with wings. "She loves to read," the note read. Clara smiled, tucking it beside the first, a quiet hope for the future. Reginald Blackwood's legacy was a paradox of ruin and redemption. His conviction for tax fraud had stripped him of his wealth, his Fifth Avenue mansion sold to settle debts. Yet his scholarship fund, established with his final legal donation, had already supported 2 young librarians, their gratitude expressed in letters Clara read with pride. Blackwood, rumored to be in Paris, sent a postcard to the library, a brief note, "Build truth where I could not." Clara framed it in her office, a reminder that even broken men could leave a spark of good. The forged artifacts, once his pride, were repatriated to their rightful origins, a move Clara oversaw with diplomatic care, earning the library international praise. Dr. Amelia Voss, the archaeologist whose ambition had led to her downfall, found a new path in confinement. Her sketches, displayed in the Vanderbilt wing, drew scholars and tourists, their annotations a bridge between her past and future. Released early,
Miniature book he'd carved, etched with his brother's initials, sat proudly on a staff-room shelf, a symbol of healing. One evening, Finch shared a story with Clara over tea, a tale of his brother's bravery, told without bitterness. "Poirot saw me, not just the limp," he said gruffly. Clara nodded, touched by his trust. Finch's presence, unassuming yet vital, anchored the library, his loyalty a silent promise to its future. Mrs. Victoria Thorne, now a recluse in Connecticut, remained a distant benefactor. The Athena Nook, her children's reading room, was a haven for young readers, its shelves lined with fairy tales and adventure stories. Clara, visiting again, found Victoria tending her roses, her black silk replaced by a simple wool dress. "The library thrives because of you," Clara said, handing her a photo of children reading in the nook. Victoria's eyes glistened. "It's my piece," she replied. Her poetry, published under a pseudonym, gained a small but devoted following, its verses of loss and hope resonating with readers. She sent Clara a slim volume inscribed, "For the library, where hearts mend." Clara placed it in the nook, a quiet tribute to resilience. The Vanderbilt wing, once a tomb of secrets, now sparkled with life. Its treasures, a Gutenberg fragment, a Shakespeare folio, Voss's sketches, drew global acclaim, with Clara overseeing their care. The Pharaoh's curse, its secrets exposed, rested in a secure case,
Its inscription: "To knowledge, the only true treasure. E.T." A haunting echo of Thorne's better self. Late at night, a junior librarian claimed to see a shadow move across the wing. But Clara, ever practical, attributed it to flickering lights. Yet, one morning, she found a single rose on Thorne's old desk, its petals fresh, its origin unknown. She left it there, a silent nod to the past. Manhattan's gossip had turned to newer tales, gangsters, starlets, and Wall Street dreams. But the library's story book